I remember feeling nauseous. I wanted to get up and run away. The idea of allowing someone to pay me this higher rate for this work was incredibly uncomfortable. And I broke through that barrier and have subsequently broken through many, many, many of those barriers.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. How do you find your ideal business model? In case you're wondering, a business model is just the different ways you make money, the services you offer in your business. When you go beyond the therapy room, you have so many options. How do you decide what's optimal for you? Do you want to run a small group, large group, Evergreen course, workshop? Like I said, there are so many options. That's the question I wanted to delve into with my guest this week. You know I'll be getting into this question with many more guests because there are many different right answers to this question. This week I'm talking to Megan deBoer, a financial wellness coach. Listen as we explore how she landed on her current offerings, her take on financial growth, and what she had to work through in order to grow her own income. Welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Annie, for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So your business is called Tended Wealth, and you help people improve their relationships with money. Why is money and improving people's relationships with money so important to you personally?
Well, I know from a very personal, intimate perspective how fundamental money is in our lives and how it touches every single aspect of our lives. So when we think about our health and our well-being, our financial well-being is intimately intertwined with that. And I have personally had, years of anxiety around money and challenges around earning money in many years of my early life. And so I know from a personal perspective how crucial it is to my own well-being. And I also see in this work, and I'll go back to sort of how I got here, but how crucial and how transformative shifting our relationship with money is, it has kind of that incredible domino effect in the rest of our lives. So it transforms externally and internally. There's kind of this incredible synergy that happens between the internal and the external. And it's through money is just a really powerful medium for that to happen because we are engaging with it all the time. And it symbolically represents a tremendous, powerful energy. And we have many layers of our relationship with power. So it just kind of, it's this fascinating medium. And the more I do this work, the more fascinated I am with it being kind of a portal to explore many, many different layers of ourselves and how we show up in the world.
So it's really, I love how complex it is, the way that you think about money. So this is kind of like probably an oversimplifying question, but do you see a tendency that when people do this work, they end up with more money in general?
I do see that regularly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is just cleaning up. So sometimes it's people have a lot of disorder with their money. So organizing their money, understanding how it's working in their lives, how it's flowing in, how it's flowing out, what is to keep, what is to give away. Having clarity from an organizational standpoint gives people sort of a trust in being able to receive more. It also allows people to see what they really need to support themselves. And so that inevitably leads to asking for a raise, raising their rates, looking at different options that they have around earning because they can identify what that discrepancy is. And it's always a really powerful moment. And I have seen, I've had one of my specialties, one of the areas that I always focus on is in earning. And so I have had clients triple their income. I've had clients, earn radically higher salaries through negotiation. I regularly see people maybe not triple their income, but drastically increase their capacity to earn. And we can get into more of that later, but it's a key piece of this.
Okay. And do you notice a tendency of who is a really good fit for your work? Do you tend to work a lot with entrepreneurs or people? I know you've been mentioning salaries also. What do you notice these people have in common?
So I work primarily, I draw and attract people who work for themselves. So self-employed, people who are solopreneurs. I also work with people who are salaried. So it's not that I exclusively limit my work in that area, but I tend to attract the self-employed. Before doing this work, I actually was a bookkeeper for many small business owners. And that's what brought me into this work, because I really had a front row seat to people's relationship with money. And I got to see firsthand, and I just started asking lots and lots of questions about why these patterns were showing up. And that's what led me into the work that I'm currently doing. So I love bringing my business mind and accounting mind to this work as well. But in terms of who this work serves, or the work that I offer, who it serves best, it really is the individuals who struggle in their earnings. So they tend to be in service-based businesses that are relational at their core. They have a relational component to them, and there can often be nervousness or a discomfort raising fees or entering into that. There tends to be the desire to find a way to minimize as many expenses as possible rather than expanding the income. So those are the people that I love working with, because there's a lot of internal work that can be done to shift that mindset and shift you into recognizing your own needs in the context of your business and building your earning from that place.
Did you have to go through a transformation around that in order to transition into doing this kind of work and not the bookkeeping work?
Yes. Huge personal transformation in all along the way. And I remember when I started doing this particular work, transitioning from bookkeeping, which is, can be paid well, but not really well, not at the level that I was needing to get to. And even in my training, when I was working toward my certification, I had to charge a much higher fee than I had been charging for bookkeeping. And it was excruciating. And I remember sitting kind of in a meditative state with myself. And I remember feeling nauseous. I wanted to get up and run away. The idea of allowing someone to pay me this higher rate for this work was incredibly uncomfortable. And I broke through that barrier and have subsequently broken through many, many, many of those barriers. So I have come really far myself in this work, and I know that terrain very well.
Yeah. So you really know how to walk people through it, and you know what they're dealing with. So what I think of as your core offering, or, a way that a lot of people work with you, is your program Equipped to Thrive. And then I know you also have a 1-day yoga and prosperity offer. And then I know you also have another offer that we're going to talk about. But I want to focus on your course, Equipped to Thrive, a little bit. So I noticed that you've got a self-led component and a cohort component. So for people who are listening and who are like, what is Annie talking about? So what I mean is, like, when you create a program online, you have all these decisions to make. Like, do you want it to be something that's available anytime someone raises their hand, or do you want to kind of run it as a program where, like, everyone's starting at a certain time together And I know I have struggled with that question. And so I thought it was really interesting that it looks like your program has this self-led component where it's kind of, evergreen in that you can sign up anytime, but then people get to work like 3 different times of the year. People can start working with a group of people to, actually have the same people they're working with for a period of time. Am I getting all of that right so far?
You are. Yeah, no, absolutely. And my primary reason for having that dual or the sort of overlapping offer is because some people are more inclined to be self-led through a program. I know I am. And because I only offer it 3 times a year, there are people who are ready to start at a very particular time. So for people who may reach out to me and want to do the work, but it's a larger investment to do that one-on-one work, they will often go to the course as a secondary option, which is wonderful. And they can get started right away, at least with some of the material, and go really at their own pace. And I would say the majority of the people who take the course, they will be thinking about it for a long time, and then they will coordinate their start date with the beginning of the next cohort. So it isn't that, like I would say, it's the minority who take it in the self-led way, but the course material is designed for people to, the actual live calls that I have are much more focused on the discussion and conversation and kind of working through the different layers that people are coming into contact with. And that allows us to focus more on the community aspect rather than me teaching. So it feels like a wonderful combination from my perspective, because they can do that work outside of the group call. And then we come together and have a informed, deep conversation about the content.
What do you notice about people doing their homework? Like, how does that go?
It absolutely varies. I would say people, they start out and they're gung-ho. I think the biggest challenge and why I like it when people are held in that cohort group is that they will reach an inevitable point of getting overwhelmed, not so much with the material, because the material, it's extensive and very comprehensive, but it's not necessarily too much to get through. It's actually pretty contained. It's more that they will hit a place where they are overwhelmed by what they're confronting, whether that's doing a spending plan or looking at their debt or what their savings needs to be. Whatever part of that process, they will, it shows up as not doing the work, but it's usually more of an emotional resistance. But I actually have a place in the course itself, and then I do a lot of work with my clients throughout the course to help support them through getting stuck.
Oh, excellent. So you're helping them anticipate that and work through it.
Yes. And what I love is people hearing from each other when they're stuck, and when they break through that stuckness, it helps the other people hear, okay, it's possible for me to go through that challenging exercise. And the groups are always, the cohorts, I always limit them to under 10 people. So so it's pretty intimate, and I get to know everybody, and I can really tailor how I guide people and what they should be working on. So if they are stuck with the material, if they aren't moving forward, I will tell them exactly what I think they should step into next. So just like a small piece of it to keep them moving through it.
Have you ever run, this is from my own personal experience. I ran a group that got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when it hit a certain number, I noticed I wasn't in my element as much. Mm-hmm. And so I found my sweet spot is small groups. And at this point, who knows, this could change if someone's listening to this in 2030 and they're like, what you said, but I'm thinking for me, my sweet spot is under 10 also, 10 or less. And I'm wondering, is that true for you? Like for you being in your element, that you like
Yes.
small groups?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it took me a couple of years to transition from the one-on-one work or working with just a couple to working with multiple people and multiple people virtually. It's a different context. So first I was comfortable with 5. Now I'm very comfortable with 8 or 9. 10 would be the limit, and 10 is kind of, for most of the time someone's missing a class. So it still gives me good attention. But absolutely, that is my sweet spot. I am not interested for myself in having 20, 30, 100 people. That's not my style at all. Maybe in a talk, but not in engaging with the material and allowing that relationship to develop.
Yeah. And I really think it's important that we're working in a way that not only is profitable, but really fulfills us.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm reading Paul Jarvis's book, Company of One. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have. I read it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And and it's all about how constant growth isn't always the answer.
Yes.
And that sometimes fulfillment and profitability can be really sustainable and optimal.
Yes.
Without throwing more money at things and without expanding constantly.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, do you find keeping things small works well for you? Or do you notice any kind of income ceiling that you want to push beyond, that you might have to change your business model? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's something that I love working on with my clients, is that question of lifestyle, income need and desire, and capacity. Just really getting clear on, you need to recognize how you operate best. What is that sweet spot for you? And to have the pricing be reflective of that. More importantly than, of course, pricing is a whole art in and of itself. But I think too often we look outside of ourselves, of what other people are charging for something. We're comparing the value rather than recognizing, I only have this many open slots a year, or I only run this many courses and they are each limited, to this many people throughout the year. What does that revenue model look like? And does that support and sustain me in the way that I need to? And if it doesn't, then beginning to play with some of those levers. All right. If I limit this, if this is only accessible to 8 people a year, then my pricing needs to be this much more. So it's a powerful inquiry to get into. And I take myself through that as well. And yes, there is a ceiling for what I feel is a responsible limit on what my course can, because I do feel like there's only so much of me. I would be very open to running more courses. I don't think for me, it's not limited to the number of courses and tracks that I run throughout the year. Maybe limited to 6 or something like that. I haven't needed to expand it from what it is yet, because my business is still primarily individual clients at the moment. It's probably 65% of my business or more. So all of those factors, you just have to run them through your own filter. Yes. What makes sense for me?
Hey, it's future Annie jumping in. Some of you have been asking me recently about whether I'm going to be running my 5-week program to help you create your pilot program beyond the therapy room. And I had said that I wasn't going to run this again until the fall of 2020 because I was going to be traveling this summer. And my travel plans have changed, but more importantly, things have changed for a lot of you. And I am going to be starting this 5-week program up on April 29th. So for some of you, it's just time to tread water, and it's not time to start something new, and that's totally okay. For some of you, it's time to take action on your plans and to create your scalable, unique online program. So this is just for those of you who are ready for that and You want a process to guide you through it over 5 weeks. What you leave with at the end of this program is a pilot offer that you've already begun to launch, which means you've already begun to sell it. This program only has 8 spots, so it's a really intimate, high accountability group. We've got 4 weekly 1-hour sessions just with you and a small group of folks and me. And then we have one final 4-hour session, again with that small group. There's curriculum before every session. There are some videos and worksheets that are all designed to just help you figure out your pilot program and launch your pilot program. Now, all of this is stuff that you can do online from home. And in fact, it's designed to do it exactly that way. To learn more and apply, head over to rebeltherapist.me/create. The application is free. And I have applications because I want to make sure this is a really good fit for you and your current situation. So if you're not in a spot to do this program right now, no problem. But if this is for you right now, go ahead and apply, and we start on April 29th. All right, let's get back to Megan.
And I have other aspects of my business that are growing and really powerful sources of revenue. So I'm not overly reliant in one area or another.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about that. Like, I know you have run something as a backend offer, like something that is, only available to people who've been through the first program. And can you tell us about that and what's happening with that program?
Yeah. So last summer, I finished one of the Equipped to Thrive cohorts, and everybody wanted to continue. And there was that, we're not ready. We don't want to be done. We're ready for the next series. And I had been wanting to create a course specifically around earning for small business owners or self-employed, maybe not with employees, but that company of one model of individual. And I developed a course specifically around earning and invited just the people that I knew would benefit from it and ran it as a beta program to test it out. And it was a really powerful class, and I loved all aspects of it. And I'm excited to release that soon again. So it ran first as really that beta version, and I'm going to be actually producing it and not have it be just a, creating content on a weekly basis that isn't as cohesive as I would like. So,
okay. So
works.
That gives me a bunch of questions I want to ask you. So that means when you ran it as a beta, you were creating some of the content kind of as you went?
Yes. I had.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I had. It was a wonderful way to do it, because Equipped to Thrive is based on the work that I take my clients through in the one-on-one setting. And so I already knew that material very well, and I produced it, outside of that live version. But for this one, I had folders and folders of the content that I was eager to share, and I had it all mapped out. So I knew what each module was going to be. I just hadn't done any of the recordings or the worksheets or any of that. And so each week I would create that, or, I would do a couple a month and create the content for the upcoming class, which was a brilliant way to do it because it forced me out of any kind of procrastination and got me into the creating mode, and also kind of lowered my own tendency toward perfectionism. And it allowed me to get the content and the material out and then receive immediate feedback from the participants in, what was really powerful, what they had questions about. And that's the part that I'm eager to go back and refine all of it and have it be different. So I loved creating it that way. It was a fantastic way to do it. And I highly recommend doing it that way.
Me too. That's how I've always created everything. And there's the stressful aspect of it in that you're creating things as you go. So you've got a lot of deadlines, but then I think it's also, like you said, you have a built-in deadline. So you're getting paid to create your course for the
Right.
people it's for. So
Right.
I think that's so fabulous. And then I'm also wondering, have you found, I know a lot of folks who I work with find that it's actually whittling things down that's a little bit harder than
Mm-hmm.
coming up with enough. It's like
Mm-hmm.
having to pull back and not give people everything that you might want to give them.
Right. Right. Yes. And I definitely have a tendency to do that. And so it was helpful for me to sort of put it all out there. And now I'm excited to go back and refine, although there isn't a lot that I anticipate taking out. It's more of a refining, maybe separating some segments into two parts with two separate, making it a little bit longer than it was. But yes, that's always a challenge, narrowing the focus enough. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so you're going to be releasing that not just to people who've already worked with you. Some people can actually start with that course.
Yes, that's my intention, is that it wouldn't be limited to someone having to complete the other course. It would be a wonderful bonus, but they could actually be done in either order or individually. There isn't a requirement. I don't see a requirement there. I see them as both standalone and interconnected.
Yeah. And then I know you also run a one-day workshop with a colleague.
Yes.
And what can you remind us what that's called and what that is?
Yes. So it's called Yoga and Prosperity, and it's a workshop that is wonderful and incredibly powerful. At the moment, my colleague she just had her third baby, so we are temporarily on hold with sort of a TBD about future dates. But it's a very powerful workshop, and I love the collaborative element of having this work that tends to be so, takes us into our heads, and people feel very overwhelmed about numbers and about money in general, and really working with the body. And so the workshop itself is all around earning, and really looking at working with limiting beliefs, specifically around earning. So there are many exercises that take people through where they have their own limits and what those beliefs are at those different earning limits. And then we work with those beliefs through the body, through yoga, and with sound healing, and a lot of ways to work it through, for lack of a better way to describe it. So beginning to integrate the sort of the new experience in a felt sense of what that expansion, what that capacity to receive and allow more into your life, feeling that in the body as well. So it is a wonderful workshop, and we've done 1-day workshops and 3-day workshops.
Ooh,
which
I
are
bet that's
pretty
amazing.
great. Yes, yeah, it is pretty amazing. But yeah, at the moment, if anyone's interested, definitely sign up on that list. But I can't guarantee. I don't know exactly what those dates are going to be.
With all the different things that you do to make people aware of your work, what do you think is the most effective? How are most people finding you?
Hands down, word of mouth is the way that people are finding me, the way people have always found me. I haven't ever really needed to do traditional advertising or even really social media advertising. I have a pretty consistent flow of clients because of the capacity limit that I have already established for my online programs. I haven't been sort of out there doing Facebook ads and things like that. It hasn't felt both necessary and like something that I feel the need to pursue. So I stand outside of that approach. And I know this is your area of expertise, but I think I just run my programs a little bit differently. It's really just like a group class. It's not the program, the online programs that can just be downloaded.
Yeah.
many, many, many times. So I want it to be more relationship based. And I just have had really wonderful success with word of mouth. But I also have people Google me and find me that way too. So it's not exclusively word of mouth. It's Google. And then, yes, through the institute that I trained with, I get a lot of referrals through that channel as well.
Okay. Yeah. You're really speaking my language in terms of it's actually relationships that work best. And that sometimes I think people see people with a big social media following and they think, oh, those are the successful people. When in fact, sometimes they are, but there are also a lot of people who they may not have heard of who are doing incredible work and making a really good living. So it's not all about these public launches.
Right. And I think it's really just, it depends on the course, on the program that you are offering. It can make beautiful sense for a lot of people. And there are some people who do programs that are less, that require less one-on-one coaching in the way that I want to hold the people who take my courses. And those can be delivered to a much, much bigger audience. And it makes sense to then market your offering to a much bigger audience. So there's a time and a place for that. It's just for the current offerings that I have, that hasn't felt in integrity with what I have wanted to do.
Can you tell us just a little bit about how you use email marketing?
Yeah. So it's nothing that fancy other than I really want to connect with the people that are on my email list. And so with email and social media, I try to send a newsletter out an email to my list once a month, just about. It doesn't always happen, but rather than being formulaic, I really want it to be in coordination with something that I'm inspired by or something an offer that I want to let people know about. So I don't have a schedule of all the emails that I need to be sending or a strict formula of I have to send a newsletter out every Thursday or something like that. It's much more organic, and I've tried to impose some kind of framework, and it just really doesn't work. I've tried to pre-write emails and they end up falling kind of flat. And I've just found for me, it needs to be my current voice and my authentic voice in that moment and really speaking directly. And I find that to be the most effective on social media. And I have a very small following too, but I have pretty high engagement and industry-wide for my emails. I have really, really high engagement, which I'm very proud of and really grateful for. So I know that I'm connecting and it resonates with people when I am operating from that place. And again, that's important to me and how I run my business. More than having, checking the boxes. So yeah. And then I use it. I'm just in the middle of transitioning when someone signs up on my email, it used to have one specific sequence, and I actually am reworking that for some strategic reasons, but I am temporarily using that in a different way. So I do use my email as a tool to nurture an initial relationship with new.
With kind of a series of emails that someone gets when they first sign up for your free offer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. I know I got one email from you that I really liked, something that you said about, I don't usually like sending out very many emails, but it was something like, I'm not going to let my own fear about that stop me from sharing my work with you. And I thought, yes exactly. That's so important.
Yes. And that definitely, I have to fight that voice, because sometimes my tendency is to, when there's a lot of noise, to get quieter And so that is something that I know I need to work against, is that tendency, and make sure that I am getting in front of my audience and sharing the important, relevant information. So, yeah.
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 So any like one nosy thing that I love to ask, and I know people really love to hear about, is do you have any kind of time hacks or time management rituals that really work for you that you've developed over the years?
You know, this might sound strange, but I actually feel like, I mean, it's not strange. There's science behind it, but it's probably not the answer that you were maybe hoping for, because it's not necessarily a hack. But I absolutely recognize a direct correlation between my ability to focus and be productive during the day if I honor the time before I start working to meditate. And if I take that 10 minutes, my mind is clear. I can focus. I can get through a list of emails, a list of tasks much more smoothly. And it feels like the magic tool that if I forget, I'm like, oh, why is it so hard today? And then I remember that I had skipped that step. So I would say that's my number one tool that I use.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Megan. This has been really a pleasure.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And well, I appreciate all of the work that you're doing, helping therapists really see this broader possibility that is available to them. It's beautiful work. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. You can find out more about Megan at tendedwealth.com. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast, Brianne Rising for taking great care of our guests, and I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you want to help us out, and you want to help out somebody who needs to think about their business in a new way, please share this episode with a rebellious healer or therapist in your life. Just like in Megan's business, this podcast really grows through word of mouth. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.